Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Donna, and if you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe below and hit that notification bell. So today's video is going to be a first for me. It's my first watch review, and the watch I decided to review for this video is the Tudor Princess Oyster Date. Now this is a vintage watch, so I did buy it pre-owned. Unfortunately, Tudor doesn't make this watch anymore. I bought it from a boutique in Montreal called Time Merchants. They do have a website for all those of you out there who can't get to Montreal for one reason or another these days. So I will link all their information in the description box below. Be sure to check them out. Just for all you Canadian viewers out there, a heads up, their prices are displayed in USD, so it's something to keep in mind while browsing their website. And Time Merchants personally is a great place to shop when you're looking for either vintage, unique, and like unicorn timepieces. The staff there is great. They're so knowledgeable and helpful and just willing to share their passion for watches with everyone else out there. Now, as for pricing, my watch, I purchased it for $725 US, which comes to about 950 Canadian dollars, which is great once you see the condition of the watch. And for those of you who aren't really aware with the Tudor brand, it is a Swiss company. They are based in Geneva, and it's a fairly old company, I will say. It was registered for the first time in 1926 by a man named Hans Wilsdorf. And yes, for all you Rolex fans out there, it's the same Mr. Wilsdorf who founded the Rolex company. And his idea with the Tudor brand was to offer more affordable timepieces while preserving Rolex's reputation for quality. In fact, up until the mid-90s, Tudor used Rolex parts when making or composing their watches. So you could actually find Rolex logos and crowns, Rolex inscriptions onto their watches. And although Tudor eventually phased out the Rolex logo and inscriptions on their watches in order to develop their own style and identity, Tudor does still remain a sister company to the brand today. Both of them are actually owned by the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation. So let's go take a look at my watch. So my watch came in a vintage Tudor box like this, as you can see. And here it is, the Tudor Princess Oyster Date. Now this particular watch was made in 1984. And the name Oyster, it just suggests that it is a waterproof watch. However, I wouldn't really test that theory since it is, like I said, a vintage watch, and I am really careful not to get it wet. Also, the word date in the name just means that you can see the date on the dial when wearing the watch. Now, because this watch came out before the mid-90s, you will be able to see that there are Rolex logos and the Rolex crown on various parts of the watch. For starters, the first place we can see it, we can see the Rolex crown on the crown of the watch. As well, you can see the words Original Rolex Case by Rolex Geneva along with the crown on the case back. Another place we can see the crown is on the clasp of the watch. You can see it very clearly here. As well, the Rolex logo is engraved into the clasp in two places, so in the front and in the back of the watch. Now this watch is an automatic watch, so that means that if you're not one to wear it every day, as soon as you don't wear it for a couple of days, you do have to wind it to keep it running and to make sure it keeps time properly. As opposed to, let's say, a quartz watch, which means it's battery run and the watch will run until the battery dies and you have to change it. And as well, as opposed to a manual watch, which means it has to be wound every day, whether you wear it or not. Well, another great feature of this watch is that it has what we call a quick set date, which means that the crown has a special position that I will show you in a little bit, where you can just directly change the date without having to wind the hour hand in 24-hour cycles. So let me show you what that means. So we start by unscrewing what we call the crown. Once you hear it pop and you'll see it come out, it's time to wind the watch. And you wind the watch by doing a couple of cycles, rolling a couple of cycles upwards. And I don't know if you can hear that, but it's winding. And as soon as you see the second hand start to move, it's wound. Now here I'm going to show you the positions I was talking about. So you have to slightly pull the crown outwards. You hear a little pop. And to change the date, you turn or screw the crown upwards again. And as you can see, the date is changing. You can't go backwards, and if you do turn backwards, nothing happens. See? Now there's a second position, and this allows you to change the time on the watch. So once again, you kind of just pull the crown gently out. It popped again, and now I can adjust the time in 24-hour cycles. In order to close it, very easy. You push the crown in again, past the 1 and 2 position. And now for the last step, we have to screw the crown back onto the case. It can be a little tricky, so with force but gentle at the same time, you have to kind of push the screw back in and turn upwards at the same time. So I'm going to try to do that for you guys on video. And you just turn until the crown cannot turn any longer, like this. So as you can see, this is a full stainless steel watch. So the case measures 26 millimeters. And when I say 26 millimeters, I mean the diameter of the watch. So from one end to the next, excluding the crown, measures 26 millimeters. And as you can see, the dial is a silvery color, although it has turned a more of a creamy beigey color with time, which is completely normal and common with vintage watches. The bezel is smooth, and when I talk about the bezel, I mean this ring all around the dial, as opposed to what we call fluted, which is when there are little ridges all along the bezel. Now there are silver baton indexes in the place of numbers on this watch, except for in the place of the 3rd hour, we can see the date. As well, in the place of the 12th hour, we have the Tudor logo or shield. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but there is a cyclops on this watch, which means that this part of the crystal is a little lifted, and that just helps magnify the date so we can see it easier. Now, right underneath the 12th hour or the shield, we have the words Tudor and the name of the watch, Princess Oyster Date. And right above the 6th hour, we can see the words rotor self-rewinding, which just means that it is an automatic watch. So, there you go. And as for the bracelet, it kind of looks like what we call a jubilee bracelet, which means that there are 3 strands of thinner links within 2 strands of thicker links, like that. And as for the clasp, it's just a normal fold-over clasp, like this. So you close it by pushing down. So let me try this on for you guys. And this is what I was talking about by closing the clasp. You just push down, it pops. And one of the reasons I love this watch so much is because it is such a small size, which I find is very rare these days, with kind of like the bigger trend going on even for ladies' watches. I feel like with a smaller watch like this, it is more versatile, so you can wear it dressed up or also with a more casual style, whereas bigger watches, they kind of have a more casual vibe going on. So now let's talk about the pros and cons of this watch.
So for me, this watch does have a number of pros,
and a couple of cons. Not that many, but there are some. For me, the pros are that it is a unique watch. It's very versatile. You can dress it up, dress it down, as I mentioned a few moments ago. As well, I feel you do get great value for the price you pay. And you can also get that Rolex look. It does look a lot like an Oyster Perpetual or a Datejust. So you get that Rolex vibe without necessarily paying Rolex prices, which is great. And the quick set date feature does help a lot, especially if you're in a hurry in the morning to get to work or whatnot. Now, as for the cons, like I mentioned, there are a few. First one being that it is a vintage watch. So you do have to be a little bit more careful with it, the way you handle it. You can't get it wet. Be careful in the rain, things like that. As well, because it is an automatic watch, if you're one to wear the same watch every single day, it's not a problem. But if you do like to alternate between your watches like I do, sometimes it can get a little irritating to have to wind your watch to make it start running again. That being said, it is easy to learn and you do get used to it over time, so it's not a complete deal breaker. And my last con is that, once again, because it is automatic, you do have to service it to help maintain the watch and keep it running smoothly. And usually you service this type of watch every, I would say, 3 to 5 years, and it does cost a couple of $100s every time you do service it. So over time, it can become a little bit more expensive than, let's say, a quartz watch or a battery run watch. But all in all, I'm very happy with my purchase. I'm going to keep wearing it for years and years to come. And those cons I mentioned are in no way any deal breakers for me. I hope you enjoyed my video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Don't forget to leave all your comments below. If you have any questions, leave them below. I'll be sure to answer. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys!